all this religious thing's got to change. People have to understand that God doesn't exist within one person. It exists within all of us.
Exactly. And that goes into the ages and the Yuga cycles and how we're shifting from the Kali Yuga to the Dwapara Yuga. You know, the Kali Yuga was the age of authority and hierarchy. And within that age is also the age of delusion. So within the age of delusion, a few avatars came down that weren't delusional and they had the truth. But humanity is so delusional, we interpreted their information delusionally. You know, case in point, look at every religion, every one of those prophets, beautiful, legit, read about Jesus, right? And all this stuff. And then look at what happened afterwards, right? But now we're in the Dwapara Yuga, the Bronze Age, and that is a symbolization of sovereignty, going from the truth is outside of us because I'm not at the frequency to know it, to I am now at the frequency to know it, the truth is inside of me, but everything in me tries to feel that it's outside of me because that's where I've been for thousands of years. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So we need to get used to this new reality and step into our intuition, listen to ourselves. But we've just been marketed that everything is outside of us so much, but that system is crumbling. And a part of that crumbling is also the disclosure of the fact that we're not alone in the universe. There's going to be a lot of things that are going to change. And to so many people.
You got to accentuate the positive. Wow, I feel good. A little bit of feel good goes a long way.
You're listening to Karen Swain, teacher of deliberate creation, accentuating the positive, showing you a way to a better life.
Accentuating the positive, it's not just fad, it's sanity. Who in their right mind would accentuate anything else?
If you feel like that's what you want to do.
G'day. Welcome to another show, Accentuating the Positive with Karen Swain. Always a blessing to be with you all today. Look who's in the house with me today. Neil Gaur from Portal to Ascension. Multitasking as usual. I can see you're reading something. Hey, Neil, welcome back to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Karen. Good to be here with you.
So we're going to talk about important stuff today. There's been a lot going on. Neil reached out, a few months ago and said, you know, can we have this conversation on your show about what's going on with disclosure and UAPs and all that sort of stuff? And I said, absolutely, an amazing conversation. For those people that don't know Neil, let me just tell you just a little bit. Neil and I have had a couple of conversations. I think we've had one or two. And so we've explored your story, your awakening story, which I thought was very cool. So if you want to go and listen to Neil's story, just go and check it out on ATP Media. Neil Gaur is the founder of Portal to Ascension, a conscious event production company hosting a wide range of presenters on a variety of topics, such as origins of humanity, the existence of extraterrestrial life, exposing hidden truths, and exploring spirituality and the nature of reality. He's created over 3,000 fully produced events, webinars, retreats, and worked with over 2,000 researchers and spiritualists and scientists and conscious explorers, teachers and experiencers. You've been in the UK and just put on a conference in Glastonbury. We were just chatting before about, you know, how people are waking up to the galactic, the extraterrestrial, the star nation, star family conversation, which is really the topic of today's conversation. And you were saying that in Glastonbury, they're having their festivals, but they didn't really include that conversation. Do you want to just share with us what you've experienced over in the UK?
Right. So almost a year ago now, 13 months ago, so I was here in UK traveling around. And I went to Glastonbury. I put out a Telegram thing on the Portal to Ascension Telegram saying, hey, I'm in Glastonbury. Anybody around want to meet up? So one of the people on there said, yes. We met up in Glastonbury and we had a conversation. And she was like, Portal to Ascension needs to do an event here. And I was like, why would I at that point, I was only thinking events in areas where there's huge populations because it's easier to get people out when there's more people, right? Glastonbury, it doesn't have a huge population, but it is a destination town. And she said that there's this missing link going on over here in England, that a lot of people, you know, I don't want to do a blanket statement over everybody, but I'll just say what I experienced. She was saying that a lot of people, they're Reiki healers, they're doing energy work, they're doing information, they're doing starseed readings, Akashic Records reading, but there isn't this cohesive element of a mission that brings it all together. We're just doing it. This is our job, our profession. We go home, we go to sleep, right? And Portal to Ascension, for a lack of a better way of explaining it, has an end goal, even though there is no real end to this. And the end goal is us creating all this awareness to move to a world where this is the norm, right? Normality. And so she was like, what's really missing is this conversation that brings all these worlds together and ultimately is leading towards an ascended reality. And there's all these events, Glastonbury, like, oh my God, so many things going on there. And even from looking at them, I realized how unique our event was. So, we went ahead and did it. And out of all the events I've ever done, it was the least amount of effort to promote. It was just like people were just pouring in. And it was so amazing because a lot of the people there, I would say over half of them, had never been to a conference before. A lot of locals don't go to local events because they're inundated with it. We had all these locals that were just, oh my God, Portals Ascension is coming to town, And then we had all these people from random cities that have only attended our events for 3, 4, 6 years online and couldn't come to an event. And finally were, oh my God, like so excited that we got an opportunity to be closer to them so they could come out. So it was nice to have those people that we've been connected with online for so long show up there. And I feel that we rallied the community together in Glastonbury, and people said that they could feel the vibration throughout town. Conversations were happening in all types of cafes, at the Chalice Wells, the White Springs. It was just this beautiful cohesion that happened with this event. So we're going to do it again next year. We already scheduled it.
So did people come over from Europe? Did anyone come over from Europe? Yeah, they did? Yeah.
So there was, it was surprising. It was quite a good amount of people, maybe not half the audience, but I would say like many, many people came from Europe, Bulgaria, France, Germany. We had a whole family, and the daughter, who was a 12-year-old girl, came from Germany, and somebody brought her up to me and said she's your biggest fan. So I guess she's been listening to us for years, which was pretty cool. Yeah. And but so many people in Europe said that they'd been following us for around like anywhere from 3 to 6 years online, and they don't have any of these events in their area. And when they found out we're going to be somewhere where they could fly into, they were really excited.
Because, in my statistics on YouTube, the biggest demographic of listeners is the US, and the next biggest demographic is France.
Interesting.
Yeah, I get a lot of Europeans listening to my podcast, and I've got quite a few Europeans in my group, which makes it hard to gather everyone from Canada and the US and Australia and New Zealand and Europe, get them all online at one time. Unfortunately, the Europeans have to stay up late. But anyway, I think Europe's rocking with this conversation. I really do.
Oh yeah, for sure. So actually, Alan, myself, and Joan are doing a Europe tour, August to October 2024.
Ah, nice. Yeah.
We're going to be going around, Paris, Berlin, Munich, and we want to take this information on the road and connect with people.
Well, what you were saying about the UK sounds similar to Australia. I've found, like, I'm sort of all over it, like what's going on. I make a point of being all over it. And there's been a lot of people that have put on festivals, like there's like conscious festivals where there's a stack of readers, and you get all these like going for psychic readings. And of course, there's been the Mind, Body, Spirit Festival, which has been going for like 30 years. And it's basically a crystal shop these days with a few singers and readers and stuff like that. Yeah, but so there's lots of that, sort of Reiki healers and healing technologies. There's lots of that happening. And then there's the, Lights in the Sky mob that are sort of getting talking about the UAPs and the UFOs, but bringing them together, like this is consciousness. This is about the expansion of consciousness. It's all one conversation. Got to bring the family together. But there's one guy up in Queensland who's doing that with his conferences. His name just escapes me at the moment. I'll think about it in a minute. But so I have to bring Paul to Ascension down under. There's another friends of mine that do the Cosmic Consciousness conference. They classically do it in Uluru, out where the rock is. And that is a conference that's bringing all this stuff together as well. So but they moved to Lord Howe Island. They did their last conference in Lord Howe Island, which is an island off the coast of Australia, which is beautiful. It's its own little eco sort of, it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful.
That's amazing. I'm going to be in that area to be in Bali in March, so I might stop by Australia just to scope it out.
Yeah,
While
to scope it out. It's a big place,
Yeah.
honey one. It's a big place.
Well, maybe you can recommend some places for me to go,
Well,
when I'm
definitely the Byron Bay area. I mean, Byron Bay is your classic sort of Shasta, Ubud. It's the conscious
okay.
town, but it is a tourist town. But it's that area.
Yeah.
It's the hinterlands, Mullumbimby. My daughter lives up there. Like, I've been going up there for years and years. I remember years ago when I was in my 30s, somebody said, "Why don't you come up here and move into Suffolk Park?" So Suffolk Park is a suburb next to Byron Bay, next to the town, and they called it Suffering Park because that's all where the healers were. None of them were making any money.
Oh, that's so
And
funny.
I said, "No, I'm not moving into Suffering Park anyway." It was funny. That was 20 years ago. But yeah, and we were having balls up there like 20 years ago, coming as your higher self and your galactic self and stuff like that. So that's where the mob is. But that was concentrated back there 20 years ago. It spread, now it's spread. And
Right.
And Sydney's full of amazing conscious people. Like, it's just exponential. But we're here to discuss disclosure because that's what's spreading.
Yeah.
I mean, we've been talking about it for years, dressing up as our galactic selves in higher self balls and stuff like that. But the mainstream haven't piloted this conversation because we've under the hypnotic conditioning that if you talk about ETs or aliens, you're crazy, which was a thought form that was perpetuated by the press, something that my daughter is under. I've been talking about aliens and ETs and she asks me to stop it, although all her friends are into it and she's the ayahuasca, meditating. It's like she's into the whole conscious living. But when it came to the ET alien thing, she was like, don't talk about it. Don't talk about it. So it's interesting. But now, this guy, David Charles Grusch, who is the former national, Reconnaissance officer, representative,
Intelligence,
Unidentified Anomalous Phenomena Task Force for the Department of Defense. So he's come out and had this thing.
Yeah.
What's going on, honey one? Tell us what's going on.
Well, technically, he still has that title. He's still working with them, which is the Arrow, which was an office that was formed during COVID to analyze all the reports on UAPs, right? And we'll start from that, and then we'll go back. But like during COVID, there was a COVID relief bill where everybody got the stimulus checks and everything like that, and huge COVID relief bill. And at the back of it was a couple of pages that started the office of Arrow, which is the study of UAP. So they actually threw in the creation of this UFO task force in the COVID relief bill. And that was the office that then David Grusch got assigned to in order to analyze all the reports that are coming in from different intelligence agencies, from DOD, from different military branches. And he was responsible for investigating to see if there was any credibility in it, right? So as he was doing this, he was getting a lot of regular UFO sightings that were already disclosed. And then there were some people that were coming to him that were part of specific programs. They started telling him, hey, we're part of these programs that we're not disclosing to you. And there's all this information that you guys aren't receiving and here's some documentation on it, that there are actually black op programs, also called SAPs, special access programs, that you are not being read into, that's operating independently of your task force, in which we are actually reverse engineering craft from non-human intelligences that we've been doing for decades, for at least 80 years. And from all the news interviews with him, it seems like the earliest one that happened was 1933, when in Italy, when Mussolini retrieved the crash. And then the Vatican was responsible for this connection to the craft as well. And then the US government went in, and I don't know how they took the craft, but they took the UFO and began the reverse engineering of that actual craft that they had found, right? So that was another bombshell that was released, is that he said straight up on news, on mainstream news, that the Vatican has known about the existence of extraterrestrials at least since the 30s. And then we can go into the other conspiracy world and say they probably knew since the beginning of even the inception of the Vatican, right? So all this information that has been in the fringe, people have said, and has also been considered shared by non-credible people from the mainstream is now being shared by somebody who is one of the most decorated intelligence officers with the most clearances than anybody, and is coming out and saying that we've been lied to, right? And that's what occurred around 2 months ago now. When he came out in News Nation, and he said, we've been dealing with non-human intelligence craft. We have a bunch of them in our custody. The government is using it. The DoD has access to them, and it's been happening for years and years. All of a sudden, the narrative became, are you telling us that the US government has been lying to us? Okay. And this is why it's very interesting, because if we look back at what has been happening with disclosure since 2016, and maybe we can get into a timeline for those who aren't aware of what's going on exactly, because we just jump right into it, that if we go back into 2016 and we look at the drip disclosure campaign, drip disclosure and full disclosure. Drip disclosure started when it seemed like they need to get the control of the wheel of disclosure, because things were coming out, and it could be that the government and whoever was responsible for this could be held accountable for lying to us if they didn't disclose it in a way they wanted it disclosed. And part of that was the timeline: 2016, 2017, WikiLeaks emails dumping all this UFO stuff. Tom DeLonge coming out with the NSA and NASA officials, Chris Mellon, Lou Elizondo, all those people coming out. And then also Hillary Clinton on the Jimmy Kimmel show saying, we don't call them UFOs anymore, we call them UAPs. That was their beginning of their campaign in full throttle. And when they started saying, what are these things? They never said, we have them, we know what they are. They said, there's something in the sky. We don't know what these things are. We need to figure out what they are so that we can figure out what the technology is and use it for ourselves. There's one thing missing there. Who's driving these craft, right? Not one mention. It completely skipped over like 60% of the conversation by saying craft in the sky, doing things we don't know, went over who's flying them. Oh my God, they're doing something cool stuff. Maybe we can do something with that, right? And the reason for this, I feel, is that they wanted people to believe that there's something in the sky, we don't know what it is, we're going to find out what it is, and we're going to make technology now. But what they didn't tell us is most of those things in the sky are our stuff, right? Was already reverse engineered, and they've been doing it for decades. So the best way to disclose what they have, because it's going to come out anyway, is to say we found it now, rather than we found it 80 years ago and we've been lying to you for 80 years. And actually we're hundreds of years more in advance when technologically than what we're showing you guys. And so that was one of the reasons, just to be like, oh, we're not lying to you. This is just something that's a new phenomena. And then all of a sudden David Grusch comes out and blows the lid of that and says, well, actually, all the stuff that they've been telling you the last 10 years is complete BS, because they've actually been doing this for 80 years.
Yeah, and he comes out, not only does he come out just in a hearing, but I think that you said millions and millions and millions of people have seen that hearing. Like I saw it was all over YouTube and other platforms, Rumble and Odyssey and all those platforms. And I saw the whole hearing was someone uploaded like 10, 11 hours of the thing. And I'm like, crikey. Yeah, so like, yeah, he's come out, because this stuff does come out spasmodically on mainstream news programs, and people go, oh, isn't that fascinating? And then they go back to their lives like, oh, that's interesting. It's kind of like it didn't happen. 60 Minutes will do something, or some, morning program will do something, and people go, oh, that's interesting. Like, what's his name? David Icke's been down under. He's been on morning breakfast television here in Australia, and people will love to laugh at him for being crazy and stuff like that. But this is a totally different conversation, right, Neil? This is
It is, yeah. Right. And, it's so interesting because people are, lack of a better way to explain it, people are very docile, when it comes to all this stuff, because it just comes and goes. And the fact that not enough people look at this and are like, what does this mean for humanity?
Right.
What does this mean for what we think we know?
Well, what do you think it means for humanity, and why? 2 questions. And why have they spent 70, 80 years, you said 30s, covering it up?
So the first UFO crash that they have documented is 1894, which was a crash in Aurora, Texas, which was also a conspiracy theory in our world and completely in the fringe. And David Grusch spoke about it. Tim Burchett, the senator behind this whole thing, spoke about it in Congress. That there was a crash in Aurora, Texas, and there was a newspaper article about burying ET bodies over there, right? So this has been a phenomenon that's been going on forever. Many people, there's a split within the community of disclosure when it comes to the government officials. Those that are not even talking about the fact that it's not a threat because they think it's a threat and they're not looking at the history of it. And then there are those that are saying, well, evidence suggests that they've been here. If they've been here since the 30s, that's when we had the technology to be in air so that we could see them. They've been here for thousands of years. And a Wisconsin senator said that we are speculating that they're either us from the future or a very ancient civilization that's been here before we were. This is where the conversation is going now. You never would have thought you would have seen these Congress people, these regular people that we see all the time talking divided over all types of topics, asking the questions that they're asking. Okay, one congressperson asked, how are they manifesting in this reality, basically something along those lines. David Grusch said that there seem to be holographic projections of higher consciousness. And he goes, I can't really tell you what that means right here, right now, but basically it's some theoretical physics, but this is a best estimate of what is actually going on. So holographic universe, projections of higher consciousness into lower dimensional realities. Why don't you call them extraterrestrials? Someone asked him. Well, the evidence suggests that they're interdimensional. Mm-hmm. And extraterrestrial is a limiting term. Okay, so these concepts that are very spiritually quantum physics, metaphysics concepts are now coming into reality. So why have they been lying to us since the inception, since the first discovery? Well, there's many reasons. I would say that one is for sure control, right? Control and power, and then there's also maybe some more nefarious reasons of the fact that the different types of systems that could be readdressed in the world could completely crumble the society as we have it and structure reality to realize our sovereignty and have us understand who we truly are. Because I feel there are some individuals, entities, whatever, that benefits for the fact that we don't know who we truly are and we're just trying to wing it and figure it out, that we have amnesia. These beings, first of all, how are they getting here? Okay. And as Alan Steinfeld likes to say, they're not using gas-powered engines, right? Petrol, yeah. Right? They're not using that. And then what kind of energy, electricity are they using? Do they have wires? Do they have a grid where they're pulling from? Or are they generating it sustainably without any waste, right? What do they know about healthcare and medical and alignment and frequency and not being sick? Well, we've been in the spiritual realm of this stuff for a while, so we already know, like, that is like from the click of a finger, from a set of an intention, you could heal sickness and disease.
Absolutely. And I've done it.
And then
that.
Exactly. And that's the vibration that we could eventually be at when we have all are in the know. And then the ultimate one is organized religion, one of the biggest chokeholds on the planet, right? What do these beings that are projections of higher consciousness, one step closer to source, have in their awareness about who we are and our connection to the universe and them? And will that change society? So these are things that they might be speculating on, but they're not speculating because David Grusch has now let us know that they're in communication with these beings. They've dissected different bodies. They're not like, oh, these things are out there. They're interacting with these beings. Mm-hmm. They're getting information from them about this stuff. And I feel there's a fear that if they tell everybody all of this, that the power structure as we know it will have to shift.
Hallelujah. Thank God it needs to shift. It totally needs to shift.
It is right now. Like, this is huge.
Yeah, this is huge. It's huge. I had, I think I might have told you about her, Susie Hansen, on the show a couple of times. So she's a New Zealander. She's in her 60s now, and she was up on the ships when she was a kid. So it's a while ago, 50 odd years ago. And they were sharing all this information with her. And one of the things they shared with her was technology, and they said that they were drip feeding technology to humanity to use, and a lot of technology for our medical systems. So one of the technologies that's just come, she posted on her Facebook the other day that we were discussing it a few years ago, was a handheld X-ray machine. It's like the size of a brush, square, that you can put over the body, and not only can you see the bones, but you can switch it and you can see the lymph, and then you can switch it and you can see the blood, then you can switch it so you can sort of switch it and see different components inside the body. And I attended one of her talks here in Sydney with the UAP group, and I asked her the question, like, if I 30 years ago, 20 odd years ago, was taught how to X-ray vision inside somebody's body, so I can actually look inside somebody's body with my consciousness, right, why are the extraterrestrials sort of giving us this technology that's like why aren't they teaching us about consciousness, how to look inside people's bodies with our consciousness? And she said, yeah, but not everyone's can get up to speed with that. And they said they don't use this technology. They can look inside people's bodies with their consciousness, but they're giving it to humanity because it's like you've got to come one step at a time collectively into like you said, we can heal we can change our vibe and heal. But most of humanity don't get that. So it's like baby steps, baby steps, baby steps.
And a lot of this technology is reverse engineered from on our end. So rather than given, some of this technology is reverse engineered, so we're not able to even reverse engineer fully the extent of what it's able to do.
Right.
We can only figure out a fraction. And as other people like Robert Bigelow and others have alluded to, that we have been gifted technology too. Now, I forget what I read in the last 2 months from some sort of whistleblower saying that much of our technology on this planet has actually come from reverse engineering craft.
Yeah, absolutely. They've been giving us technology for years, but secretly. And so this latest disclosure is bringing to the light that they can bring us technology that will totally transform this world. Like, I get very upset about the pollution. Like, I think about when I go to the supermarket, all the plastic that I buy. And plastic is not biodegradable, and so it sort of hangs around for a couple of thousand years. And then I sort of see rows and rows and rows of product with plastic, multiply that by every supermarket in the world, and that changes and then I think about all that plastic going, and it freaks me out. Like, it just freaks me out. And we do a lot of recycling in here in Australia, but we can't keep up with the recycling. So it freaks me out. But the Galactics have said to me, we have the technology to clean up your pollution like that. Like, just that. And I'm like, that makes me feel better. But
I feel that.
But they did say, we'll give you that when you take responsibility for what you're doing to the earth. And until you take that responsibility collectively, we're not going to give you that, because you've got to take responsibility as a human race. So that's part of their plan, that, like children, it's like a child, right? It's like, I can help you, but if you learn to do it yourself and take responsibility, then that's going to be better for you. Yeah. So.
Exactly. Yeah. I feel we're getting to a level where we're having rude awakenings quite often, that more and more people are waking up and we're taking responsibility. And most people want the same thing. They want the planet to be thriving, doing well. There's very few people that don't, but then at the same time, we're also so consumed in this consumeristic life that we need to be so productive, we need to survive, that a lot of us don't have time to think about our environment and what's going on around us, because we're too focused on making sure that we're okay and our loved ones are okay. And that's also part of the game as well. I mean, just look around you at this moment. Like, besides all the plastic in the store, how much plastic is just in front of your face, right? We even have it in our glasses, unless you got full metal glasses. Even the metal glasses have plastic inserts. You know what I'm saying? It's just like, we're so inundated into this reality, and we're so incepted into this world, because that's how these corrupt programs and organizations do. They make it that you cannot rely on anything without it. They make you so used to it, so comfortable with it, that if you were to break free from it, you would have to go into a level of discomfort in your relative existence. discomfort for a while to move into something else, right? So what's happening now with this whole with disclosure is we're just taking another stepping stone towards a collective awareness that we're not alone. So something I shared at the Glastonbury conference in the beginning was that within 2 to 3 years, we're going to be in a world where every child that's born is going to be born into a world where they at least know that it's now known we're not alone. Right? Whether we're having interaction, communication, or any of that stuff, or this is disclosed, doesn't matter. But the foundation has been set. The new foundation has been set. This exists. They're out there. We don't know what it is. Probably extraterrestrial. Senators, Congress people all over are saying it. History Channel is now doing military files series on all the militaries in the world about all the UFO stuff. The Japanese UFO program, the Chilean UFO program, realizing it's not just isolated to the US, right? Yeah. That they've all known about this. Chile started their UFO program in 1997 and have been meticulously researching all of the sightings without any reservations publicly since 1997.
1987 or 1897?
No, 1997.
1997.
Right? Yeah. So they've been, really looking at, so all this information is out there, all this data is out there, and they've just not wanted to speak about the elephant in the room. Yeah. Who's driving these things?
I think that now the cat's out of the bag, so to speak. I think the acceleration, is going to be exponential, honestly. We've had this 80, 100 years of drip fed nothing, the odd show on television and nobody pays attention. And now it's just going to accelerate. There's a lot going on in Australia. I asked my Galactic Mob about it, and they said to me there was a lot going on because it's been covert. And they don't know what people know about it. Think of Australia. Australia is this massive land, massive, almost the size of mainland, Northern America, USA, and 26, 28 million people on this massive land. So there's a lot of space here. And so it's a great place to hide stuff, right? It's a great place to hide stuff. And they said there's heaps going on in the deserts in Australia underground. And I said, oh, cool. Yeah, so there's a lot going on down here. As far as
that makes sense.
Makes sense.
And I've been watching some news shows in Australia, and they do pretty good coverage when it comes to UFOs.
Yeah, well, and there's
even about the US programs in Australia.
Well, there's that guy, what's his name? Me and names, who was a 60 Minutes, because 60 Minutes was your classic.
Russ
Coulthart. So 60 Minutes is your classic. He's the Aussie, and he's getting the word out. And that makes me very proud, because 60 Minutes is that sort of show that loves to make you crazy for this sort of stuff, that likes to, mainstream media, 60 Minutes. But Ross, I don't think he's working for 60 Minutes anymore, but he was known, he became famous down under as a 60 Minutes reporter. So it gave him that cred, he got the cred. And then he's brought out all these incredible documentaries exposing this stuff and going way beyond the conversation that they had at the Congress about, the conversation that we're having now. Ross Coulthart, mainstream reporter, is having on YouTube, and he's getting a lot of attention, attention. It's incredible what's happening.
I know, right? So I'd love to shift the conversation to talking about discernment and agendas here, right? Okay. When it comes to that. All right. So when this came out, a lot of, let's say, the normal crowd, the people that aren't in the know, they were very interested in this for the most part, and been like, what? Are you serious? Some credible, these are the type of people that only go based on what authorities and media tell them. And authority and media is telling them, hey, this guy could be credible, right? So they're looking into it and saying, oh my God, something is genuine here. And then there's people in our world, in our community, and I would say the majority of them feel that it's not credible, and that it could be, even though they want to be hopeful, they've been jaded and they've been hurt so often waiting for things to happen that they don't have any trust in anything anymore, and believe that this is also controlled opposition, controlled agenda being pushed out. So to the whole world, really, I want to say that what we need to notice within this one is something I shared right when we began, is that there is the agenda of, we don't know what these are. We found out what they are. Here we are going to reverse engineer them. Hey, we created this craft 2 days ago, right? And then there's this agenda, which seems to be actually, that's all a lie. It's been happening for 80 years. And now everybody's saying the government has been lying to us, right? And members of Congress are saying that the DoD, military industrial complex, isn't listening to them, and they should have classified information to deliver to them. So one of the reasons why I feel this isn't 100% drip disclosure is because if you were one of these individuals in these programs that were doing some sort of nefarious control agenda, you wouldn't want the mainstream world to be against you, thinking that you're a liar. And the narrative coming back at you saying that you've been lying to us, holding this technology forever, release this information. Congress people saying we need to hold these people accountable, put them on trial. The Congress also passing legislation making illegal to use any taxpayer money for Black budget programs, right? First of all, you would think that would be the case anyway. However, it wasn't the case because they weren't aware those programs existed. So they were getting away with it legally by taking money and losing money. For example, the $1 trillion that got lost the day before 9/11, right? Where did that money go? Black budget programs. And so they made it illegal for them to use that money, but the programs still exist. So now technically they're operating and using money illegally. But what they did was they also passed another legislation saying that if you are a member of any of these programs, you are now granted amnesty, and you can come out as a whistleblower and let us know about it, and we will protect you, because obviously now you're basically being funded and being paid illegally just to do these programs, right? So that's what's going on there. Now, there's another element of this is privatization versus public. The way the military industrial complex, DoD, whoever's behind these real things get away with it is they hand over the technology to private firms that are protected because of their proprietary information. They don't have to disclose anything that they're working on technologically because we live in this capitalist society where you got to protect your assets and all this stuff, right? So Russ also said that he had information that a really large U.S. aerospace company is attempting to get rid of the UFO that they've had since the 40s or 50s, right? Because they're afraid of being held criminally accountable. So there's all this frantic things going on right now. People are freaking out. They've had this technology for like 60 plus years, and they want to sell it off because they know that maybe the government, the military that gave them the contract isn't going to protect them. They could be held accountable for lying to us for so long, right? So I'll stop there and then we'll go to discernment in a second. Yeah.
They'll probably bury it in the desert in Australia.
I know, right? That's the perfect place.
When we excavate the desert, because the guides have said to me that the desert in Australia, which is massive, like when you fly over Australia, you just see red desert. It's amazing. But they said in time to come, like outside my timeline, my life, the desert will be re-irrigated, and at some point in the future, Australia will be one of the most populated parts of the planet because things are going to shift. Yeah, so they're going to be digging up all these UFOs. Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if they found some in Antarctica, right? Because that's the whole thing that's been coming out. All the fringe information in Antarctica is being now validated by the mainstream.
Right. I know. It's exciting.
Yeah. Well, when Stephen Greer did his press conference in DC about a week after Grusch came out, he had a Raytheon contractor there, and the Raytheon contractor said that the South Pole acts as basically as a way station, as air traffic control for UFOs coming in and out of our atmosphere. That there's some sort of energy emanated from the UFOs when they enter in and out of the atmosphere, and because of the position of the South Pole, that you're able to track this emission, and by tracking this emission, you can see who's coming in and out, right? Straight up said, a Raytheon contractor. And then he said that there's some sort of device that's pulling energy from Antarctica underneath. He doesn't know what the energy source is, but this device is a directed energy weapon device. And he even mentioned which earthquake it was responsible in causing in the US.
Wow.
And he came out and straight up said this. And this has been said by people within our communities that have not been mainstream. But this was a Raytheon contractor, their straight up whistleblower, explaining what he witnessed down in Antarctica. So it seems like just like a lot of even movies and Stargate, the show had implied that down there in the South Pole, the reason why many we're not allowed to go visit there freely, but only specific governments have control over it, could actually be connected to the extraterrestrial question.
Yeah, what's his name that has the show on Gaia? Tall guy. Oh God.
Oh, Emery Smith?
Emery. He's been saying that for ages. He said disclosure will happen because the poles are melting. It'll be all exposed. All the stuff's going to be exposed from down there. Yeah, down there and up there. But yeah, specifically down there. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And we're gonna be start, and a lot of this stuff has already been found, and it's gonna get to a point where I feel we're gonna be shifting very quickly. There was a ex-CIA official called John Ramirez. So he said right after David Grusch came out that the memo went out that they're landing in 2027 and they better get their stuff together.
Wow.
And that really gave me goosebumps, and I felt it through my body, because what is happening is, just like the founder of the Israeli space program, I forget his name now, but he came out in the mainstream a few years ago saying that their galactic alliance exists and they're not ready to interact with Earth because we're not basically ready to receive them, right? And that's because of power, control, fear, all these different reasons, vibratory frequency, that we're not able to receive this. So what needs to happen is slow acceptance in the human consciousness of this reality. And what has happened now is we move from what this technology is to who is driving this technology and having interaction with different beings. Now that will become the norm. So with 2023, we have 4 years with this already set as our foundation. If we're exponentially increasing from this point of information and downloads of this awareness, imagine where we can be in 2027. So I feel we have a 4-year window period to really kind of inform the masses and shift from the fear state into an acceptance state, into a curiosity state, right? And when we get to that point, it's very, very likely that within the next decade, we could be having communication, interaction in person with different beings. Right.
Yeah, I often think about this, and I've had many chats to my mob about, because, when we talk about extraterrestrial life, it's so diverse and multidimensional. There are some beings that think about the bacteria that, exists on our planet, and how other beings don't have that. Like a lot of the greys, which they say are like a little AI sort of, what do you call them? Sort of fleshy robots. What do you call that? The mob said to me that because many extraterrestrial races can't physically be here because of our bacteria and stuff that they would encounter, and pollution, that they send these little grey guys to come pick you up when they're taking you up to the ships, because they're like these little
interesting
fleshy robots. And what do they call it? Anyway, there's a name for it.
Well, non-biological entities is one of the terms.
Yeah. So not all greys are these fleshy robot things, but there are many of them that can go onto different planets, not just Earth, and they're not affected by the different bacteria and stuff.
That's very interesting.
Yeah. So what did I want to say to you? There's a group of people. I don't know if I'm trying to find him on my website. If that are actually, they have millions of dollars and they're building an extraterrestrial embassy to meet, to welcome the beings. Do you know that mob?
Yeah, you mean Sylvain?
Sylvain, yeah.
I'm actually, we're doing their annual conferences through Portal to Ascension now.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So I'll just connect with him.
But you were talking about religion and how the disclosure of life throughout the cosmos interacting with Earth, because I think that I asked my brother, who's a total skeptic, do you believe in aliens? And he said, I believe in aliens, I just don't think they're interacting with Earth because it's too far to come. So he's in the mindset that you've got to get in a petrol engine and a rocket and fly light years to get here. But anyway, I think that might have changed. I'll have to talk to him about it. But so there are people that believe in them, they just don't believe they're interacting with Earth. That when they do come with their ideas, their consciousness and their technology, it'll shift the world like the religion. I was watching something last night, actually. It's an expose on one of the mainstream news here. It's a Korean cult, religious cult, Christian cult, that was recruiting young women, and then the cult leader was sexually harassing them, raping them, basically. And he was in jail for 10 years, and then he came out and he kept doing it. And they just worship this man. Like, I'm not talking about a few people. I'm talking about hundreds of thousands of people across the planet worship this man, even though he was in jail for rape for 10 years. And I kept thinking, what is the consciousness of somebody that puts these religious people on this pedestal?
Right.
Like, yeah, all this religious thing's got to change. People have to understand that God doesn't exist within one person. It exists within all of us.
Exactly. And that goes into the ages and the Yuga cycles and how we're shifting from the Kali Yuga to the Dwapara Yuga. The Kali Yuga was the age of authority and hierarchy. And within that age is also the age of delusion. So within the age of delusion, a few avatars came down that weren't delusional, and they had the truth. But humanity is so delusional, we interpreted their information delusionally. Case in point, look at every religion. Every one of those prophets, beautiful, legit, read about Jesus, right? And all this stuff. And then look at what happened afterwards, right? Yeah. It's almost like these prophets should have known what would happen, right? They should have just let him be because it was so diluted. But now we're in the Dwapara Yuga, the Bronze Age, and that is a symbolization of sovereignty. And we move. So we're in the transitionary phase. People are going through the growing pains of going from the truth is outside of us because I'm not at the frequency to know it, to I am now at the frequency to know it. The truth is inside of me, but everything in me tries to feel that it's outside of me because that's where I've been for thousands of years. You know what I'm saying? So we need to get used to this new reality and step into our intuition, listen to ourselves. But also the external reality keeps telling us not to do that, right? Yeah. Even when it comes to the pharmaceutical existence, for example, we have the ability to heal ourselves within. We have the ability to balance our nervous system through breath work, right? Instead of having to take anxiety pills. But we've just been marketed that everything is outside of us so much, but that system is crumbling. And a part of that crumbling is also the disclosure of the fact that we're not alone in the universe. There's going to be a lot of things that are going to change. And to so many people, it may look chaotic. It may look kind of scary because everything you think you know is going to completely fall. Yeah. But it's all about perception at this point, right? You and I, we already have the perception of this is going to possibly happen, but we understand that there's something greater out there. And through that perception, you can mitigate having to fall into fear about what's going to happen. Because the only thing that really matters for a human, we can eat, sleep, drink water, and some of us, depending where you're located on the planet, need a roof over our head. You know what I'm saying? So ultimately, we'll still have all of those, but bank accounts may no longer exist. Who knows what's going to happen, right? Yeah. So there may be a transitory phase to get to this other reality. And on some level, it might be good that we're doing this slowly rather than a huge influx. Yeah. There's going to be a huge influx soon.
I had a girl on the show a few years back who had an experience where she was transported to a alternative Earth, another timeline of Earth, a parallel reality of Earth. And in that parallel reality of Earth, I mean, you could say it was a dream, but she said it wasn't a dream. She said that she was transported there. Anyway, believe her or not, in that reality of Earth, in the 50s, when they said that it was a weather balloon, or in the 40s when the Roswell incident was happening, it came out in the public in that timeline, in that parallel reality. And then so disclosure happened in the 50s basically, and then so in the 2000s, whenever it was 2018, when she experienced this parallel reality, she walked outside and saw this amazing place. Like everything was so modern and efficient, and so they had reverse technology, what do you call it, the technology from
reverse
engineered and integrated it into society. And she said that money didn't exist either. Everything was free. You could, like get on a train or a transport thing. And and there wasn't shops. But yeah, she described it. And I just remembered sort of visualizing it and thinking, wow, imagine, when disclosure happens, what happens to our society? It was a conversation about that I had with her back in 2018, I think it was. But yeah, like in amazing. In a few short years, what will society look like? Yeah, but
exactly.
all the systems, the health system, money system, transport system, education system, religious consciousness system. Like I've had a dream for a long time, Neil, to see universities teaching consciousness. So they have the massive churches doing this, teaching religion. Like, why isn't there massive universities teaching us about consciousness?
Exactly.
I guess.
So go ahead. Sure.
I was going to say Portal to Ascension is that university.
Right. And that's why we're going to become more mainstream. These people doing this stuff we're creating the institutions for the new world. Right. And right now we're small little hubs, but then pretty soon we're going to have full-on centers, entire villages, Right. And my whole thing is I want to create communities. I want to go around the world and create communities that are Ascension communities, where we even have contact centers over there doing meditations, communicating with different beings, bringing down different awareness, educating ourselves in a way that realize our limitless potential rather than educating us in a way realizing that we're limited. That is what the education system has been so far. So not only would all this stuff comes out, it's going to create an exponential leap, but what will happen when we start educating ourselves with the correct information, right? The default setting of the human will be something that is beyond anything. Instead of this contracting, just keep your head down and do your thing kind of reality, we can all really be leaders and start tapping into all the innovation that is out there and exploring it. So it's very interesting. It's the rubber band effect. Have you heard of that before? Bashar was talking about the rubber band effect. And Bashar channeled being from Daryl Anka says that the way the consciousness in this duality world works is that you pull back the rubber band into the complete duality in the darkness, right? And then when we're ready to ascend, you let the rubber band go and it just flings into the light, right?
Yeah.
And I feel that's what we're destined to do. We've had this experience of this darkness, and we've had this contrast that we needed to fully embrace what it means to be in the darkness. And by learning these lessons successively, accomplishing the learning lessons within this, we are now able to embody the polar opposite in the light. And I feel that is where we're heading. There might be a lot of darkness on this planet still, but that doesn't mean that we aren't experiencing it. We are experiencing that darkness. But as that gets to a close, we're then able to bring that equal amount of light onto this earth and able to live in a more expansive way, and ultimately even be what I feel is our destiny, is be the extraterrestrials to other planets and start venturing out and visiting other worlds.
Yeah, I know. How cool would that be? I've read a lot of books, amazing experiences. There's a book called Beyond the Light Barrier that was written by a South African woman who died in the 90s, in her 80s. And she was taken to a planet in the Alpha Centauri system and looked at the way they lived and everything. And she had a baby. Anyway, so people have had conversations with highly evolved races. And you've heard about, the Taiwu prophecy. Samuel Chong's been spreading the information about that. A ninth category planet. But when you ask these beings, if they're not overcoming struggle, like what are you doing as a society if you're not sort of struggling to overcome the problems that we create? They said, well, we go to other planets and we help other people overcome their problems. And I thought, right, because you create this utopian society. We're a long way off from that. But eventually, as we evolve then and become a space race society, then we'll solve our own problems, and then we'll reach out to the cosmos to help other planets that are going through what we've been through on Earth.
Yes,
their problems. Yeah. Anyway, that's getting way down the track. So, did you finish what you wanted to say about integrity?
Even though you might be saying that's down the line, but I feel that's what we're doing right now, setting the foundation for that world. That this is the milestone. this is the milestone. This is the turning point that we create in humanity's world that is going to eventually lead us to going to other planets and helping other planets liberate themselves as well.
Yeah.
I feel that.
We're getting a few glitches happening. I think they're telling us it's time to wrap up. But is there anything else you wanted to discuss? This is a fascinating conversation. Yeah, it's exciting times. The rubber band effect. Yeah, that's what we're in at the moment. We're in that rubber band effect. I feel like it's just going to go. You know, my daughter does a lot of amazing things, and she had a film crew filming her for a news piece, because she kind of does free diving, and she was bitten by a shark and a whole lot of stuff. And these two young guys came to Sydney to film her, and they came from the mainstream news place, and I was quizzing them about, you know, what they had been going through. And basically they went to his uncle's farm and did an ayahuasca ceremony and saw the expansiveness of the universe, and they had to quit mainstream news because they realized they were just perpetuating fear, and they couldn't do that anymore. So I started talking to them about aliens, and Annika was saying, stop telling people about aliens, Mum. And then the guy asked me, why do you talk about aliens so much? Because Annika's like, Mum never shuts up about the aliens. And I said, because in your lifetime, it's going to become your reality that we're going to be, you know. And these two young guys, they go, wow, yeah. And they started contemplating it. It was really cool to have that conversation with them. Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Really cool. Is there anything else you want to share with people before we go about this topic, or what's going on with Portal to Ascension?
Yes. I feel that, just to close off the discernment thing real quick, that when we look at what's going on with disclosure, it's really important not to throw the baby out with the bathwater and be so jaded that we're not looking at what is actually occurring, and as if that it isn't relevant to us. So there are definitely conflicting agendas going on here. There's also agendas in regards to these things are a threat. And then there are those that are saying, well, if there were a threat, why would they have not done something beforehand, right?
Exactly.
And then within the threat community, they're not all bad people, even though that's even a relative term, because I don't really feel anybody's bad. We all got our wounds, you know, like there's those that saying it's a threat because they want you to be fearful so they can maintain control over a thing that they know exists. And then there are those that are ex-military officials, people that are intelligence officers, that are regular people that just happen to work in this militarized reality, that their bottom line is national security of their country. So they're just regular people, just happen to have those jobs, that are saying that it could be a threat because where are they seeing most of these craft? Most of these craft are showing up at nuclear bases, right? That's where, and then why are the military have most of the sightings? Because it's showing up at military bases. As a regular person at a military base, what would you think is going on if it's something that is anomalous invading your airspace? It's a threat. So just realize there's those two agendas. They have been here for a while. They're not doing anything. There's the threat. And then within the threat, there's two agendas there. There's the actual nefarious ones and those that are just genuine people kind of concerned for the well-being of everybody. So I would say personally, don't go to these people with judgment, but look at the bigger picture of where they're coming from, why they're saying all this information. And when this information comes out, realize that there is a warring agenda for the truth to be disclosed.
Yeah.
And we have now created a new foundation where this information is that ETs exist. We're not alone in the universe. And the more and more people that understand this, whether there's an agenda or not, will set the intention and the conscience of humanity to have that as the default. When we can all accept we're not alone in the universe, we continue working through our traumas. That is how we eventually get to a world where we can have open disclosure with these beings. So I would say just keep sharing this with everybody, and you know, share this with people that maybe don't have the time to even realize that there's been a hearing on the fact that there's non-human crash retrievals in the US, because the more people that are aware of this, the more we set that as a default. So that's kind of all I want to share today.
Yeah. Somebody rang me about Stephen Greer saying that he'd been infiltrated because, you know, he made that documentary about the false flag of once disclosure happens, then the military are going to say there's a threat, and then the next psyop will be the alien invasion, right? But he made a whole documentary about it. But if you understand consciousness and you understand that what you focus on, you create, what you think about, you create, what you look at, you create, then somebody like Stephen Greer, who's supposedly a conscious being, he, you know, he raised millions of dollars to make a documentary all about this threat. Right. And I'm thinking he's actually creating it with his focus and making a documentary about it. Which
so interesting. Yeah, because, you know, everybody talks about the fake alien invasion.
Fake alien invasion,
And you know, because I've worked with Greer, and I really appreciate all the work he's done. But when I look at where did they even get this information from, it was something that he shared once and then talked about many times. And now people are just parroting that same information over. But even Greer has gone back now and said that they actually failed, that invasion has failed, but it's just been out in the masses. And because of the distrust in government, people automatically go to, this isn't real, there's no real ET crap, they're not doing this stuff, ETs exist, but this isn't it. It's about a fake alien invasion.
Yeah.
I don't feel they could pull it off.
No.
Personally.
No, there were some great memes that went around during 2020 about that. There was one that I was just laughing. I can't remember what it was. God, it was funny. It was some people, it was taken out of a movie of people in military uniform saying, well, this has failed. Roll out the fake alien invasion.
Yeah.
It was, anyway. But, you know, my brother works in the military. I've got two brothers in the military. One works as a contractor, one works in the army as intelligence. So he's a light worker. He's amazing. He's not fully awake and conscious. He's going through some challenges at the moment. But in his 30s, maybe he was in his 20s, he sat down and he said to me he wanted to change the world. And he's looked around, and the way he's going to change the world is to go into intelligence and go into warring countries and create peace. That was his mindset. Yeah. I totally understood it. It wouldn't be my way of creating peace. My way of creating peace is teaching people about consciousness.
Yeah.
But so he's been in the military for 18 years in intelligence. And I've asked him about this topic. And as far as he's concerned, there's been no discussion in the intelligence that he said. I thought that was really interesting. Yeah. Because he would tell me, even though it's sort of covert, you're not supposed to talk about it. He would
right. It's compartmentalized too. They've done such a good job compartmentalizing things that even people that are in the programs helping reverse engineer crap aren't even aware that ETs exist.
Right.
Because they're even one part of it all. Just like the nuclear bomb. That's what happened with that.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, I haven't seen him since the Congress thing came out. Well, maybe I have, but I'll have a discussion about that. Because he still works for the Army and intelligence here in Australia. So it's going to be interesting. Darn one. It's been.
I've also noticed, let me just say one thing. I've also noticed that a lot of people, they have given top level clearance. So when they find out that there's something else that could be even more on top of their level clearance, they're not willing to accept it because they have the belief that they know everything that they should.
I know.
And they do this very well. Yeah.
But the whole hierarchy thing has to crumble too. I mean, the hierarchy is so 3D, you know, that there is somebody better than you, knows more than you, knows more than you. Like if we're all God, then we all have access. Every person on the planet, everyone has access to anything if they just open their mind. They can remote view. I mean, imagine when remote viewing becomes the norm, there are no secrets, right? Telepathy becomes the norm. There's no secrets. There's no covert operations anymore. There's no secrets when everyone expands their mind and realizes that we can all telepathically communicate and remote view if we want to. Yeah. It's exciting times. What I think about is all the people that have gone before, the old men. There are a few that names escape me that have been disclosing this for years, but have died before what's happening now. I mean, they're watching from another dimension, but in their lifetime, they worked for 50, 60 years getting this message out and then left their bodies before any big things sort of happened in the mainstream. Right. Yeah.
Exactly. They laid the foundation. Dolores Cannon's one of them for sure.
Yeah. What did they say? They planted seeds for trees under which they would never sit under the tree to have the shade of the tree or something like that. How does that saying go? You know,
it sounds like Moses in the Promised Land.
But exciting times, saying one exciting times. So do you want to share, what are you doing in the UK with Portal to Ascension? You're going to Egypt, you said, in September?
Yeah. So we did the Glastonbury conference, and we got that going on next year, September 26th as well. We have a usually scheduled programming online, portaltoascension.org, where we launched a new website. So lots of new content on there, very amazing, robust, kind of Netflix style viewing for thousands of hours of footage. And we're going to Egypt. We're taking 2 tours of 100 people each to Egypt in September. And then I just go full Android and iPhone and Roku app creation, because we're going to create apps for our website. So if anybody wants to stay tuned with what we're doing and just follow all the events, we do over 100 events a year. You can go to portaltoascension.org and sign up there. And you also, for everybody who signs up, you get around 3,000 hours of free presentations on our website as well, like on lots of different content. So go ahead and check it out and explore our website.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Neil. It's been great. It's been great to connect with you. It was a fun, fascinating conversation. I could talk about this stuff all day. Fascinating. We'll do it again. We'll get a bit of a gang together. And Sheila and I talked about last year, we didn't get it together, getting the galactic guys together to have this conversation. And we didn't get it together. We did the galactic girls, the galactic goddesses last year, but we didn't.
Remember that one.
We didn't do the galactic gods. We just never got that together. And now she's so busy with conscious awakening.
That sounds good.
But it's still on the pipeline to get you guys together to talk about this in a collective. Tell me what you think, people listening to this. Is that something that you'd like to participate in? We could do a live and you can ask questions. Thanks again, Neil.
My pleasure, Karen. Thank you.
That was a fun conversation. I really enjoyed that. Neil is just such a wealth of knowledge, as you can imagine, dealing with so many people, putting on so many events and hearing people speak about this stuff. He's a wealth of knowledge. I mean, he was an avid researcher before he even put on any events. He's like me. He's got this incredible, curious mind, wants to know about everything and everyone. I'm like that too. I want to know about everything and everyone. I just like to know what's going on this planet. What are people thinking? What are they talking about? What's happening? What's being disclosed? What's not being disclosed? As I've said many times on the show and during our groups, the light is being turned up on planet Earth, and as it does, it reveals. When you turn up the light, you reveal stuff. Not only do you reveal the dirt, like the darkness or the stuff that needs to be cleaned up, but you reveal all the secrets that have been hidden. And it's been a long time coming, hasn't it? What did he say? Well, I suppose the ancients, like the ancient Egyptians, and going back 20,000, 30,000, like into civilizations before supposedly civilizations existed on this planet, were walking amongst the extraterrestrials. They were cohabiting together. So in our past, we have this history of being with them. And at some point during the building of the false matrix, as where Sheila and I are going to talk about in her group in October, she's going to talk about the false matrix during Cosmic Conversations, if you want to join us. The building of the false matrix, the dumbing down of humanity, the forgetting, the fact that we are alone in the universe or not alone in the universe was forgotten. And then there was this collective thought form perpetuated that if you did believe in alien life, you were completely crazy. You were completely crazy, which is still perpetuated. It amazes me. It amazes me. People mention the word aliens and people start giggling straight away like, oh, aliens. Yeah, right. Right. You're talking about aliens. Are you crazy? Like, what's wrong with you? Are you mad? Personally, my whole life, I've thought that if you didn't believe in aliens, you were mad, because look up. I mean, how could you think that there was no life out there? That to me is insanity. That is madness, to think that we're alone. That's just madness. It never made sense to me, even as a kid. Yeah. Fun. That was fun. What do you think about all this? I wanted to say, I don't know, there's a stack of channels that are doing the Congress. I was just listening. I was telling Neil that I was listening to Portal to Ascension. I was listening to Alan and JJ and Desiree Hurtak and Zetka Caro and Joan of Angels. Anyway, they put up a thing on Portal to Ascension when the Congress thing had disclosure, House overnight hearing for UAPs went live, and they streamed it live. So it's a 3.25 hour thing on Portal to Ascension, Alan and the mob talking about it, and then they stream the thing. But there, I did see on YouTube that there is a 10-hour one, but if you just put it into Google or YouTube, you'll see it there. You'll see it there somewhere. If you want to watch it, it's good to actually listen to what these people are saying, what they're revealing. It's good to know, because if you do have conversations with your family or your friends that tell you that you're crazy, you can refer to this conversation. Well, apparently I'm not crazy because Congress in the US is talking about it, and the mainstream news is talking about it. So by doing that, we are breaking down that false matrix that says that if you talk about this stuff, you're crazy. The cat's desperate to get on me. I think I need to go and feed the cat. So much fun, so much fun, so much fun. All right, so who's coming up in the Inner Sanctum? Dawn Hudnall's coming up. I don't know if you caught Sheila in the Inner Sanctum last weekend. That was fun. She was talking all about her walking experience and a few different things. She did mention the false matrix, and she said to me, I'd love to have a whole session on the false matrix and talk about how the false matrix, that we actually live in a 5D reality, but then there was a false matrix created that created the 3D reality. And I said, that'd be a great conversation. Let's do that on Cosmic Conversations, because I'm co-hosting in October with Sheila. So on the first Monday in the US, Tuesday morning, it's a very decent time. It's like 11 a.m. on a Tuesday morning here, which is 7 p.m. Mountain Time in the States on a Monday night. Sheila's going to talk about the false matrix. And then I've got a few guests coming on Cosmic Conversations, people that I've met on the show this year that have rocked my world. I've just loved them, loved them. A couple of Aussies. So that's coming up in October. But Don Hudnall, who I met through Sheila in Cosmic Conversations, he's been on the show. Check him out. He's coming into the Inner Sanctum as our guest next month. He sent me an email about what he wanted to talk about. Oh my God, this man has so much to talk about. He's had so many experiences. He is amazing. He's such a humble man. He's got a BitChute, and I think he started uploading to YouTube last year, channel called It's Just Me, It's Only Me, or something like that. It's Just Me, I think it's called. And then he just chats about his day, just chats and rambles. But he has got some amazing experiences. So we're going to quiz Don. He's normally part of the participants, and he doesn't say much, but he has memories of pre-birth memories of planning to be here, and he takes on dark energy and transmutes it by just squeezing it with love. And this is stuff we talked about on the show, but in the email he said, I'd like to talk about this and this and this and this and this, and I looked at it and I thought, whoa, because he's just got so much to talk about. He has written a book. Yeah, his BitChute is called, it's actually BitChute Don Hudnall, HUDNALL, Just Me. If you want to meet him and quiz him and hear his story on Zoom, rather than just watching the live, we'll do some of it live. But after every live, I turn off the live streaming. I'm not recording, and we just chat. And it's not being recorded, and people can say whatever they want to say. We just chat. It's really cool. So join us in the Inner Sanctum. I've got to go feed the cat. You're desperate for food, aren't you? Meowing at me all day. How do you stop a cat meowing at you all day? I don't think he's hungry. Maybe he's got worms. Anyway, that was so much fun. Let me know your thoughts. I'd love to hear what you think about all this, how you think that disclosure is going to change our world, and how's it going to change your life? How's it going to change your relationships, and how's it going to change the money system? That's what I want to see changed. Anyway, how is it going to change? I don't know how long I'm going to live, but if I live another 20, 30 years, life's going to be very different in 20, 30 years, the rubber band effect. Check out the book, Awakened by Death, if you haven't already, and I will catch you next time. Thanks again for listening and watching, subscribing, liking, sending your comment, and sharing the shows. Big love to you all. Bye for now.